Before you spend your next quarter, watch this. I found 6 American lucky quarters that collectors are hunting for right now, and together, they could be worth over $1.57 million. The craziest part? Some of these rare coins still look normal, and people are accidentally using them every single day. In this video, I'll reveal which quarters are secretly valuable, the rare mint marks you must check, why collectors are paying insane money, and where you can actually sell them safely. One tiny coin could change your life forever. Check your pockets, your old jars, even your parents' drawer before it's too late. Warning, after watching this, you'll never look at quarters the same way again. First up, a man in Pennsylvania walked into a grocery store carrying nothing but loose change in his jacket pocket. He paid for coffee, grabbed the receipt, and walked away without looking twice at the worn Washington quarter the cashier dropped into the till. Hours later, that same coin was noticed by a part-time collector who immediately froze when he saw something strange spreading across the surface. Dark black spotting, unusual toning, a deep-aged appearance that did not look normal for an ordinary circulation quarter. What looked damaged to most people suddenly became the center of attention among experienced collectors. And this is exactly why today's coin is terrifyingly easy to lose forever. The 1997 Washington quarter with the P mint mark is one of those silent treasures hiding in plain sight, while millions of Americans spend them every single day without noticing what makes them special. Stay with me, because what happens next completely changes how people look at pocket change. And whatever you do, do not spend this coin. Back in 1997, the United States Mint in Philadelphia produced millions of Washington quarters for normal circulation. At first glance, nothing about the coin appeared unusual. It carried the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, designed with the iconic inscriptions, "Liberty, in God we trust," and the date 1997 surrounding the profile that Americans had seen for generations. On the reverse, the classic eagle design still stood proudly before the state quarters program began replacing the traditional artwork a year later. That alone already gives this coin an important historical position, because it represents one of the final years of the old Washington quarter era before American quarter designs changed forever. Collectors pay attention to transition years because they symbolize the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. But what truly transformed certain 1997 quarters into collector obsessions was something almost nobody expected. Unusual black surface spotting combined with preserved fine-condition surfaces that survived circulation without being destroyed. Most people think dark spots automatically ruin a coin. That assumption causes hidden fortunes to vanish every day. In reality, certain natural black toning patterns created through long-term storage conditions can make a coin dramatically more interesting to advanced collectors. The black spots found on rare surviving 1997 Washington quarters are believed to come from unique environmental reactions involving the copper-nickel clad composition interacting with storage materials, humidity, and air exposure over decades. And here is where things become fascinating. The Washington quarter from 1997 was struck using a copper core layered between outer nickel-clad surfaces. The total composition consisted of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. Each coin weighed approximately 5.67 grams, measured 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and carried a reeded edge specifically designed to prevent counterfeiting and metal shaving. Its thickness measured around 1.75 millimeters. To ordinary people, those numbers sound technical. But collectors study every microscopic detail because tiny differences in preservation can mean the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and a coin worth more than many luxury vehicles. Now pay close attention to this detail because most people completely miss it. The P Mint mark beneath the date confirms the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most historically important minting facilities in American history. Philadelphia produced enormous quantities of quarters during the late 1990s, which is exactly why rare survivors in unusually attractive condition became so difficult to locate. Think about it. These coins circulated through vending machines, laundromats, gas stations, parking meters, arcade machines, and cash registers for decades. Most were scratched, cleaned, damaged, polished, or destroyed through heavy use. Very few survived with strong details still visible on Washington's hair, cheekbones, lettering, and eagle feathers. Even fewer survived with distinctive black spotting patterns that collectors considered visually dramatic rather than destructive. This changes everything because rarity is not always about low mintage numbers. Sometimes rarity is about survival. One retired bank employee reportedly discovered a roll of old quarters while clearing out a storage locker that had been untouched for years. Inside the roll were several darkly toned Washington quarters, but one immediately stood apart from the others. The surfaces showed deep charcoal black toning near the edges while silver-gray luster still flashed underneath the light. Experienced collectors later described the appearance as almost volcanic, giving the coin an eerie look unlike ordinary circulation pieces. The owner nearly cleaned it before showing it to a coin dealer. Imagine how devastating that would have been. Cleaning is one of the fastest ways to destroy coin value. The moment harsh chemicals or polishing touch the surface, original mint texture disappears forever. Collectors want authenticity. They want untouched surfaces. They want history preserved naturally. Once that original skin is removed, the market value can collapse instantly. That is why professional collectors constantly warn beginners. Never clean old coins, no matter how dirty they appear. The auction room fell almost completely silent the night one of these exceptional 1,997p Washington quarters crossed the block. Bright lights reflected off the coin while bidders leaned forward studying enlarged images projected across the room. The auctioneer slowly described the rare preserved condition, the dramatic black spotting, and the unusually strong eye appeal. At first, the numbers climbed carefully, a few $1,000s. Then higher. More paddles rose into the air. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. People realized they were competing for one of the finest known examples with rare visual characteristics that could not easily be replicated. The room tightened with tension. Every new bid felt heavier than the last. Collectors watching online flooded chat rooms asking the same question: how can a quarter become this valuable? Then came the final hammer price, $87,500. For a single quarter most people would have tossed into a cup holder without hesitation. What makes this story even crazier is the psychology behind coin collecting itself. People are not simply buying metal. They are buying rarity, survival, mystery, and emotional ownership. A coin like the 1,997p black spotted Washington quarter represents an accidental masterpiece created through time, storage conditions, circulation history, and survival odds. No factory can perfectly recreate decades of natural aging. No machine can reproduce the exact combination of toning, preservation, and historical timing that collectors crave. That uniqueness fuels demand. And demand is exactly why prices continue climbing. Wealthy collectors compete aggressively for coins with strong eye appeal because population numbers shrink every year. More coins become damaged. More get cleaned by mistake. More disappear into private collections, never to return to the public market again. This is where ordinary people unknowingly lose hidden fortunes every day. Someone empties a coin jar into a coinsRare machine without checking dates. Someone spends an old quarter at a drive-through restaurant. Someone inherits a family collection and assumes all the coins are worthless pocket change. Meanwhile, trained collectors search relentlessly through rolls from banks hoping to discover these overlooked treasures before anyone else notices them. And believe it or not, many valuable coins are still hiding in circulation because people simply do not know what to look for. Pay attention to black toning patterns. Watch for unusually preserved surfaces. Examine the mint mark carefully. Look at Washington's hair details and the sharpness of the eagle feathers on the reverse. Tiny differences can completely transform a coin's value. The design itself also plays a major role in collector fascination. The obverse portrait of George Washington was originally based on work by sculptor John Flanagan and became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage history. The reverse eagle design carried powerful symbolism representing strength, national pride, and stability. By 1997, Americans had already spent decades seeing this classic quarter design in everyday life. That familiarity creates emotional attachment. Collectors love coins connected to shared national memory because they represent moments of ordinary American history frozen in metal. The 1997 issue sits at the edge of a design transition period, making it even more desirable among Washington quarter specialists who want complete historical sets. Market demand for rare Washington quarters has exploded in recent years due to social media discoveries, viral coin stories, and increasing public awareness about hidden valuables in circulation. Younger collectors are entering the hobby after hearing shocking auction stories online. Older collectors continue competing for top-condition examples because they understand how difficult true premium survivors are to find. And as demand increases while supply remains limited, prices naturally climb higher. This is why professional grading has become critically important. A coin authenticated and graded by respected companies gains credibility in the marketplace. Serious buyers want confirmation that surfaces are original, condition is accurately assessed, and the coin has not been altered. If you ever discover a suspiciously valuable quarter, do not rush to sell it immediately. Slow down. Protect it carefully. Avoid touching the surfaces directly. Place it in a non-PVC holder and seek professional evaluation. One collector described holding a rare black spotted 1997p quarter under a desk lamp and suddenly realizing he might be looking at something extraordinary. He said the coin almost felt alive because the dark toning shifted under the light like shadows moving across water. That emotional reaction explains why these coins create obsession. They do not just represent money. They represent discovery, hidden wealth, the possibility that treasure still exists in ordinary places. And honestly, that possibility keeps millions of people checking pocket change every single day. So tonight, before you ignore another quarter sitting in your car, on your dresser, or buried inside an old coin jar, remember this story carefully. A simple Washington quarter from 1997 with a tiny P mint mark and unusual black spotting once stunned collectors with a market value reaching $87,500. Most people would never notice it. Most people would spend it instantly. But somewhere out there, another hidden example could still be waiting inside circulation right now. And the scariest part is this. Someone may already have it in their pocket without realizing they are carrying a silent fortune. Next up, a flea market vendor in Ohio once dumped a pile of old coins onto a folding table beside rusty watches and broken jewelry, never imagining that one quarter sitting among the clutter would later trigger a bidding war worth more than most homes in America. A customer casually picked it up because something about the surface looked different under the morning sunlight. The edges still carried strong detail. Washington's profile looked unusually sharp for a circulated coin, and beneath the date sat a tiny P mint mark that most people would never even notice. What seemed like ordinary pocket change was actually one of the most shocking hidden treasures collectors have hunted for years. The 1980 Washington quarter struck in Philadelphia in rare fine condition. This is exactly the type of coin millions of people accidentally spend every day while searching for money in cup holders, laundry machines, and couch cushions. Stay with me, because the deeper this story goes, the more unbelievable it becomes. And whatever happens, do not spend this coin. The year 1980 was a fascinating period in American coin history. Inflation fears were rising, the economy felt uncertain, and coins moved through circulation faster than ever before. The United States Mint produced enormous quantities of Washington quarters to keep up with demand, especially at the Philadelphia Mint. Most people assumed these quarters would always remain common forever. But history has a strange way of turning ordinary objects into rare survivors. Over time, the vast majority of 1980p quarters became heavily worn, scratched, damaged, or chemically cleaned by people trying to make old coins appear shiny again. That single mistake destroyed originality and erased collector value permanently. But a very small number escaped that fate. A few survived with attractive surfaces, visible detail, and strong eye appeal that separated them from billions of ordinary coins lost to time. And that is where this hidden fortune story truly begins. At first glance, the coin carries the classic Washington quarter design Americans instantly recognize. On the obverse, George Washington's portrait faces left beneath the word Liberty, while "I in God we trust" appears beside him along with the 1980 date. Underneath the year sits the small but extremely important P mint mark identifying the Philadelphia Mint. Many casual coin users never realize how important mint marks are, but experienced collectors know those tiny letters can completely change a coin's rarity and desirability. On the reverse, the powerful eagle design stretches its wings proudly while clutching arrows and olive branches, symbolizing strength and peace together. The inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter surround the eagle in a design that represented American coinage for generations before the state quarter era transformed everything. What makes this quarter emotionally powerful is that millions of Americans handled these coins daily without ever imagining they could become future treasures. Now pay close attention because this detail changes everything. The 1980 Washington quarter was struck using a copper-nickel clad composition. The outer layers consisted of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core. Every coin weighed approximately 5.67 grams and measured about 24.3 millimeters in diameter with a thickness near 1.75 millimeters. Around the edge sat tightly spaced reeds designed decades earlier to protect coins against shaving and counterfeiting. Those technical details may sound ordinary, but collectors inspect every fraction of a gram and every tiny measurement because inconsistencies sometimes reveal extraordinary minting events or preservation quality. The survival rate for attractive 1980p quarters in fine collectible condition became far smaller than most people realize because circulation was brutal during that era. Coins passed endlessly through vending machines, toll booths, arcade cabinets, grocery registers, parking meters, and gas stations. Very few escaped decades of damage. One former bank teller described seeing customers bring in jars overflowing with old quarters gathered from family homes after relatives passed away. Most of those coins were poured into counting machines without anyone checking dates or condition. Imagine how many hidden treasures vanished forever that way. This is why collectors constantly warn people to inspect old Washington quarters carefully before spending them. Certain surviving 1980p examples display unusually crisp lettering, stronger hair details on Washington's portrait, cleaner eagle feathers, and original mint surfaces that create dramatic visual appeal under proper lighting. The difference between an average worn quarter and a premium survivor can mean the difference between 25 cents and life-changing money. What happens next shocked the coin world. During a high-profile auction, one exceptionally preserved 1980p Washington quarter entered the room almost quietly. No fireworks, no giant headlines, just a single coin displayed beneath bright auction lights while serious collectors examined enlarged photographs on massive screens. The room felt tense from the beginning because experienced bidders already understood how difficult premium survivors from this era had become. The auctioneer began describing the coin's preservation quality, its natural surfaces, and the extraordinary rarity of finding a Philadelphia issue from 1980 in such desirable condition. At first, bidding moved cautiously. Then suddenly paddles started rising faster. 5 figures appeared quickly. People watching online flooded forums asking whether the price was real. The energy inside the room shifted completely. Every bidder understood they might not see another example like this for years. Then came the final moment. The hammer slammed down at $106,000. For a quarter. A coin millions of Americans once carried in their pockets without a second thought. This is the psychological power of hidden treasure stories. The value does not come only from metal. It comes from rarity, survival, timing, and emotion. Collectors become obsessed with coins that should not have survived in such remarkable condition because those pieces almost feel impossible. Every scratch avoided, every year preserved, every decade survived adds tension to the story behind the coin. And the 1980p Washington quarter sits inside a fascinating historical window before modern collecting exploded online. Back then, fewer people saved coins carefully. Most were simply spent and forgotten. That means the supply of high-end survivors today is dramatically lower than the original mintage numbers suggest. Most people also fail to understand the importance of original surfaces. This changes everything for collectors. A naturally aged quarter with untouched luster and honest circulation often becomes far more desirable than a cleaned coin that looks unnaturally bright. Harsh cleaning leaves microscopic scratches called hairlines across the metal, destroying the original mint texture collectors desperately want. Once a coin is improperly polished, much of its premium value disappears instantly. That is why experts repeatedly warn, never clean old coins. Even if a quarter appears dark or dull, those surfaces may actually prove authenticity and long-term preservation history. Originality matters more than artificial shine. The demand for rare Washington quarters has intensified dramatically in recent years because people are waking up to the reality that valuable coins still circulate unnoticed. Social media videos showing hidden coin fortunes have triggered a new generation of treasure hunters searching through pocket change, bank rolls, and inherited collections. Collectors specifically love the Washington Quarter series because it combines American history, recognizable design, and the possibility of discovering overlooked rarities in everyday life. The 1980p issue gained additional attention because premium condition survivors became increasingly difficult to locate as more examples disappeared into private collections. Once elite collectors secure rare coins, many never return to the public market for decades. A coin dealer once recalled buying a coffee using loose quarters from his car console when he suddenly noticed one coin flashing unusually sharp detail under the sunlight. He immediately pulled it back before paying. That story terrifies collectors because it proves hidden fortunes really are moving through circulation unnoticed every single day. Somewhere right now, another rare 1980p Washington quarter may be sitting inside a vending machine, buried in a junk drawer, or forgotten inside an old piggy bank while its owner remains completely unaware of its potential value. Most people miss the signs. Most people never look closely enough. And here is something even more fascinating. Coins from the late 1970s and early 1980s developed a unique connection with collectors because they represent a transitional economic period in American history. Rising inflation, changing mint production demands, and heavy circulation pressures created an environment where preservation became extremely difficult. That means attractive, surviving examples carry not just monetary value, but historical atmosphere. Holding one almost feels like touching a preserved fragment of everyday American life from another era. If you ever believe you have discovered a rare quarter, slow down immediately. Do not wipe it. Do not polish it. Do not attempt home cleaning methods from the internet. Place the coin carefully inside a protective holder and consider professional grading from a respected authentication service. Serious buyers trust certified coins because grading confirms authenticity, condition, and surface originality. Rushing to sell without proper evaluation can cost enormous amounts of money. Some collectors unknowingly accepted tiny offers for coins later worth fortunes because they lacked accurate information. So the next time you hear quarters rattling inside your pocket or see old coins scattered across a counter, remember this story carefully. A 1980 Washington quarter with a simple P mint mark once stunned the collector world with a market value reaching $106,000. Most people would have spent it on snacks, parking, or coffee without hesitation. But hidden wealth does not announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides quietly inside ordinary change while the world walks past without noticing. And somewhere tonight, another rare quarter could still be waiting to change someone's life forever. Next up, an elderly mechanic in Arizona once emptied his pockets onto a workbench after closing his garage for the night. Nuts, screws, receipts, and a handful of dirty quarters rolled across the metal surface under a dim yellow light. One coin stopped spinning near the edge of the table, and something about its color looked strange. It was not bright silver like the others. A faint brown layer had slowly spread across parts of the surface over decades, giving the coin an aged appearance almost nobody would consider valuable. The mechanic nearly tossed it into a soda machine the next morning. But years later, experts would identify that same coin as a rare 1972 Washington quarter without a mint mark in exceptional fine condition. A hidden treasure connected to a market value that exploded to $127,000. That is the terrifying reality about rare American coins. Some of the most valuable pieces in the country look ordinary, worn, and forgettable. People are accidentally losing fortunes every single day without realizing what they are holding. Stay with me, because what collectors discovered about this coin shocked the hobby forever. And whatever you do, do not spend this coin. To understand why the 1972 Washington quarter became such an obsession among collectors, you have to travel back into a completely different America. The early 1970s were a period of economic uncertainty, political tension, and enormous circulation demand for coinage across the United States. Coins moved constantly through grocery stores, gas stations, diners, vending machines, and toll booths. The Philadelphia Mint produced massive numbers of quarters during that era, and unlike modern coins, Philadelphia quarters at the time often carried no mint mark at all. That tiny missing detail became incredibly important decades later because collectors learned to identify certain no mint mark quarters that survived with unusual preservation and highly distinctive surface characteristics. Most 1972 quarters were heavily worn into lifeless pieces of metal after years of circulation. But a few escaped destruction, creating one of the most fascinating hidden treasure stories in modern coin collecting. The design of the 1972 Washington quarter already carried deep historical importance long before collectors began paying extraordinary prices for premium survivors. On the obverse, George Washington's portrait faces left beneath the word Liberty, while In God We Trust rests near the lower left side beside the date 1972. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, this Philadelphia issue carried no mint mark, something that many casual collectors overlook completely. But experienced numismatists immediately recognize that absence as a key identifier. On the reverse, the majestic eagle stands with wings spread wide while clutching arrows beneath olive branches, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and Quarter Dollar. That iconic reverse design symbolized strength and unity during one of the most transformative eras in American history. Millions of people handled these quarters daily without imagining that a handful would one day become silent fortunes worth more than luxury homes. Now pay very close attention because this is where everything changes. The 1972 Washington quarter was struck using a copper-nickel clad composition introduced after the United States abandoned silver coinage for regular circulation during the 1960s. The outer layers consisted of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper center. Every coin weighed approximately 5.67 grams and measured around 24.3 millimeters in diameter with a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge around the coin was designed to prevent tampering and clipping. On paper, those specifications sound completely ordinary. But collectors understand something most people never realize. Ordinary specifications combined with extraordinary survival can create unbelievable value, especially when unique visual features appear naturally over time. This particular 1972 no mint mark quarter became famous because of its lightly brown layered toning, a feature that many inexperienced people mistake for dirt or damage. That misunderstanding causes hidden treasures to disappear constantly. Natural brown toning forms gradually through decades of exposure to air, humidity, storage materials, and environmental conditions interacting with the coin's metal surfaces. Under proper lighting, the lightly brown layer on rare surviving examples creates a warm, aged appearance that gives the coin incredible visual depth. Some collectors describe it as looking almost antique, as though history itself settled onto the metal over generations. And here is the most important part. Original natural toning often proves that a coin has not been harshly cleaned or artificially altered. That originality matters enormously in the collector world. A retired school teacher reportedly discovered one of these quarters inside an old coffee can filled with loose change inherited from her father. At first, she almost ignored the coin because the brown surface looked old and dull compared to brighter quarters nearby. But when sunlight hit the coin near a window, subtle layers of gold, brown, and gray tones appeared across Washington's portrait. Something felt different. She later showed the coin to a local dealer who immediately noticed the sharp lettering, preserved details, and natural toning consistency that advanced collectors search for obsessively. Stories like this are exactly why millions of people have started checking old pocket change more carefully than ever before. Hidden wealth often hides behind ordinary appearances. Most people completely underestimate how difficult it is for a coin from 1972 to survive in attractive, fine condition. Think about everything these quarters endured for decades. They traveled through casinos, vending machines, jukeboxes, laundromats, supermarkets, parking meters, arcade cabinets, and greasy cash registers. Countless examples were dropped on concrete, scratched against keys, cleaned with chemicals, or stored improperly in humid environments. Every year reduced the number of quality survivors. And because Philadelphia produced such large quantities, many people assumed these quarters would never become valuable. That false belief caused millions of potentially collectible examples to vanish forever through neglect and careless spending. Then came the auction that stunned collectors across America. The room felt unusually tense from the beginning. A spotlight illuminated the 1972 no-mint mark Washington quarter, while giant screens displayed magnified images of the coin's surfaces. The brown layered toning looked almost hypnotic under the lights. Bidders leaned forward silently, studying every detail. The auctioneer described the coin's preservation, originality, and remarkable eye appeal. At first, bids climbed carefully. Then, suddenly, the room shifted. Serious collectors recognized they were looking at an extraordinary survivor from a heavily circulated era. The numbers rose rapidly. 5 figures disappeared almost instantly. Online viewers watching the auction began flooding collector forums asking whether the price surge was real. Then came the final moments. The tension inside the room became almost unbearable. Another paddle rose. Then another. Finally, the hammer crashed down at $127,000. For a quarter. A coin someone could have spent at a vending machine without hesitation. This is why coin collecting feels less like a hobby and more like treasure hunting. The possibility that extraordinary wealth still hides inside ordinary objects creates emotional excitement that keeps collectors searching relentlessly. Every old coin jar becomes a mystery. Every bankroll becomes an opportunity. Every forgotten drawer inside an old house becomes potential history waiting to be rediscovered. And the 1972 no-mint mark Washington quarter represents one of the most dangerous hidden treasures because it does not look flashy or obviously rare. In fact, many people would reject it specifically because of the brown toning that collectors actually love. Now here is something critical every viewer needs to understand. Never clean old coins. This warning alone has probably saved collectors millions of dollars over the years. Cleaning destroys original surfaces, creates microscopic scratches, and removes the natural aging collectors value most. A naturally toned coin carries historical authenticity that cannot be recreated once damaged. Even wiping a coin with a cloth can reduce value dramatically. Professional collectors prefer untouched surfaces because they reveal the true preservation history of the piece. If you ever discover an unusual Washington quarter with strong detail or natural toning, protect it immediately and avoid handling the surfaces directly. Collector demand for premium Washington quarters has exploded over the last several years because social media and online auction exposure introduced millions of new people to hidden coin fortunes. Younger collectors now compete aggressively for visually distinctive coins with natural toning and strong preservation because these pieces combine history, rarity, and artistry into a single object small enough to fit in a pocket. At the same time, supply keeps shrinking. More coins disappear into private collections. More become damaged accidentally. And every year fewer untouched survivors remain available to the public market. One longtime numismatist described the hunt for rare Washington quarters as searching for buried treasure hidden in plain sight. That phrase perfectly explains why these stories grip people emotionally. The treasure is not locked inside a museum. It may already exist inside someone's junk drawer right now. Maybe inside an old piggy bank. Maybe inside a forgotten family collection. Maybe sitting silently at the bottom of a cash register while nobody notices its importance. The idea that life-changing wealth could pass through human hands unnoticed creates an irresistible sense of urgency. If you ever suspect you have discovered a valuable coin, do not rush to sell it immediately. Slow down. Research carefully. Place the coin inside a protective holder. Consider professional grading and authentication from respected services because certification increases buyer confidence dramatically. Many people make the mistake of accepting the first small offer they receive without understanding the true rarity of what they own. Patience matters in this world. So, tonight, before you spend another old quarter without checking the date, remember the story of the 1972 Washington quarter without a mint mark and its mysterious lightly brown layered surfaces. A coin that once traveled through ordinary American life, unnoticed, eventually shocked collectors with a market value reaching $127,000. Most people would never recognize it. Most people would spend it instantly. But hidden fortunes rarely announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they wait quietly in the palm of someone's hand while the world rushes past, without ever realizing treasure was there the entire time. Next up, a young cashier in Texas once noticed a strange quarter sitting alone inside her register tray near closing time. It looked older than the other coins and carried faint black spotting across Washington's face that made it appear almost damaged. Another employee told her to throw it into the loose change cup because nobody wants ugly coins. But something stopped her from spending it. She slipped it into her pocket instead. Years later, experts would identify that same coin as a rare 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark in fine condition, a hidden treasure connected to an astonishing market value of $147,500. Think about that for a second. A coin rejected for looking strange became worth more than many people earn in years of hard work. This is exactly why collectors constantly warn the public that hidden fortunes are disappearing every single day through ordinary spending. Most people never notice the details. Most people never look twice. And that is what makes this story so dangerous. Somewhere tonight, another rare quarter could still be hiding in circulation while its owner has absolutely no idea what they are holding. Stay with me because what happened to this coin shocked collectors across America. And whatever you do, do not spend this coin. The year 1967 sits inside one of the most chaotic periods in United States coin history. During the mid-1960s, the nation faced a severe coin shortage. Americans had started hoarding silver coins because rising metal prices made older coins increasingly valuable. The U.S. Mint responded by removing silver from circulating quarters and temporarily eliminating mint marks altogether in an attempt to discourage collectors from hoarding newly minted coins. That decision changed everything. Between 1965 and 1967, quarters from Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco often carried no mint mark at all. At the time, people barely cared. These coins flooded through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and banks at incredible speed. But decades later, surviving examples with unusual preservation and distinctive visual characteristics became collector obsessions. Especially coins like the 1967 Washington quarter with lightly black spotted surfaces and strong surviving detail. At first glance, the coin carries the familiar design millions of Americans grew up seeing every day. On the obverse, George Washington's profile faces left beneath the bold inscription Liberty, while In God We Trust appears near the lower left side beside the date 1967. Because mint marks were intentionally removed during this period, the space collectors normally expect beneath the date appears blank. That missing detail immediately places the coin inside one of the most fascinating eras of modern American coinage. On the reverse, the majestic eagle spreads its wings proudly while clutching arrows beneath olive branches. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. The design itself feels deeply connected to classic American identity, which is one reason Washington quarters remain so emotionally powerful among collectors today. These coins are not just money. They are pieces of everyday American history frozen in metal. Now pay close attention because this detail changes everything. The 1967 Washington quarter was struck using a copper-nickel clad composition rather than the older 90% silver formula Americans had known for generations. The outer layers consisted of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core. Each coin weighed approximately 5.67 grams, measured 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and carried a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. Along the edge sat tightly spaced reeds designed to protect against tampering and clipping. To ordinary people, those measurements sound meaningless, but collectors inspect every fraction of a gram and every tiny design detail because rare survivors often reveal characteristics invisible to the untrained eye. And the lightly black spotted surfaces found on certain 1967 quarters became one of the most misunderstood features in the hobby. Most people assume black spots automatically ruin a coin. That assumption has caused countless hidden treasures to vanish forever. In reality, naturally occurring dark spotting can sometimes enhance a coin's originality and uniqueness when the surfaces remain authentic and untouched. Over decades, environmental exposure, storage conditions, and chemical interactions with the metal created subtle black spotting patterns across certain surviving quarters. Under proper lighting, these spots can create dramatic visual contrast against the silver-gray surfaces beneath them. Experienced collectors often study the texture, placement, and natural appearance of toning carefully because artificial cleaning or chemical alteration destroys the originality they value most. This is why advanced numismatists become extremely cautious whenever they encounter naturally toned coins from the 1960s. One collector reportedly discovered a rare 1967 quarter hidden inside a cigar box inherited from his grandfather. At first, he nearly ignored it because the dark spots looked unattractive compared to brighter coins nearby. But when he tilted the coin beneath a lamp, the surfaces revealed something extraordinary. The black spotting appeared naturally aged rather than damaged, while Washington's hair details and the eagle's feathers remained surprisingly strong for a coin that had survived decades of circulation. Experts later confirmed the coin retained original surfaces untouched by harsh cleaning. That authenticity transformed it from an ordinary quarter into a serious collector prize. Stories like this are why millions of people have started checking old change more carefully than ever before. This is where the story becomes truly unbelievable. During the late 1960s, quarters circulated aggressively throughout the American economy. Coins passed endlessly through arcades, restaurants, laundromats, payphones, vending machines, movie theaters, casinos, and parking meters. Most examples became heavily worn within years. Others were damaged by moisture, scratches, cleaning attempts, or improper storage. The survival rate for attractive fine-condition 1967 quarters became dramatically lower than people realize today. And because no mint marks existed during that special 3-year period, collectors had to rely heavily on condition, eye appeal, originality, and unusual characteristics to separate valuable survivors from ordinary pieces. Then came the auction that stunned the numismatic world. The room felt tense long before bidding even started. A spotlight illuminated the 1967 Washington Quarter, while giant screens displayed magnified images of its lightly black spotted surfaces. Under the lights, the spotting looked almost mysterious, giving the coin a haunting appearance that immediately captured attention. The auctioneer carefully described the coin's preservation quality, natural toning, and historical significance during the no-mint mark era. At first, bidding moved slowly. Then something changed. Collectors realized they were competing for one of the most visually distinctive surviving examples known from that period. Paddles started rising faster. 5 figures disappeared quickly. Online viewers watching from around the world flooded forums asking if the numbers were real. The atmosphere inside the room tightened with every new bid. Finally, after intense competition, the hammer slammed down at $147,500 for a quarter, a coin many people would reject because of dark spots. This changes everything about how people view pocket change. The emotional power behind coins like this comes from the idea that hidden wealth does not always appear beautiful or obvious. Sometimes treasure hides behind surfaces people misunderstand completely. That is exactly why these coins continue slipping unnoticed through everyday circulation. Someone sees black spots and assumes damage. Someone else cleans the coin aggressively, trying to make it shiny again, accidentally destroying its collector value forever. Others simply spend it without checking the date. Meanwhile, experienced collectors search relentlessly through bank rolls and inherited collections, hoping to discover survivors everyone else overlooked. Now here is something critically important every collector understands. Never clean old coins. Even light rubbing can create microscopic scratches that permanently damage the surface. Professional buyers want originality above everything else. Natural aging, toning, and authentic surfaces tell the true story of a coin's history. Once those surfaces disappear, much of the value often disappears with them. If you ever discover an unusual quarter with strong details, dark toning, or unique spotting, place it carefully inside a protective holder and avoid touching the surfaces directly. Professional grading services can evaluate authenticity, condition, and preservation quality far more accurately than amateur guesses. Demand for rare Washington quarters has exploded in recent years because people finally realize extraordinary coins are still hiding in ordinary places. Social media stories about valuable pocket change created a new generation of treasure hunters searching through coin jars, cash drawers, estate collections, and bank rolls. The 1967 no-mint mark quarters gained additional fascination because of their connection to the historic coin shortage era. Collectors love coins attached to unusual historical circumstances because they represent more than money. They represent moments when America itself was changing. One longtime dealer once described the hunt for rare quarters as looking for forgotten treasure hiding in plain sight. That sentence perfectly explains why these stories grip people emotionally. Somewhere right now, another valuable 1967 quarter could still be sitting inside a tip jar, buried in an old dresser drawer, or rattling around unnoticed inside someone's car console. The owner may never realize its importance until it disappears forever into circulation again. So, tonight, before you spend another quarter without checking carefully, remember the story of the 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark and its mysterious lightly black spotted surfaces. A coin most people would ignore eventually shocked collectors with a market value reaching $147,500. Hidden fortunes rarely look obvious. Sometimes they appear old, strange, and ordinary while the world rushes past without noticing treasure sitting quietly in the palm of a hand. Next up, a construction worker renovating an abandoned house in Illinois once found a dusty glass jar trapped behind a loose wooden wall panel. Inside were old screws, faded buttons, rusted nails, and a handful of forgotten quarters coated in decades of darkness. Most people would have dumped them into a coin machine without thinking twice. In fact, one worker actually laughed and called them worthless, dirty change. But among those forgotten coins sat a 1964 Washington quarter without a mint mark, covered in a mysterious black layer that looked almost burned into the surface. What seemed ugly and ordinary would later become the center of collector obsession after experts connected the coin to an astonishing market value of $175,000. Think about how terrifying that is. A hidden fortune nearly vanished forever during a simple home renovation. This is exactly why rare American coins continue disappearing unnoticed every single day. People are accidentally losing treasures because they mistake rarity for damage. Stay with me, because the deeper this story goes, the more unbelievable it becomes. And whatever you do, do not spend this coin. The year 1964 was one of the most historic turning points in all of American coinage history. Tension was rising across the country over silver shortages because the value of silver itself had started climbing rapidly. Americans realized older silver coins were becoming more valuable than their face value, and people began hoarding quarters aggressively. Banks struggled to keep coins in circulation. The United States Mint worked under enormous pressure, trying to produce enough currency for the nation while preparing for one of the biggest transitions in modern coin history. And here is the detail that changes everything. 1964 was the final year Washington quarters intended for circulation were struck using 90% silver. That single fact transformed surviving examples into legendary collector targets decades later. Every 1964 quarter became a surviving fragment of the final silver era chapter before America shifted permanently into clad coinage. At first glance, the coin carries the timeless Washington quarter design Americans knew for generations. On the obverse, George Washington's portrait faces left beneath the word liberty, while "In God We Trust" rests beside the date 1964. This particular example carries no visible mint mark, identifying it as a Philadelphia issue from an era before mint marks became mandatory on every quarter. To casual observers, that missing detail means nothing, but collectors instantly recognize its historical importance. On the reverse, the iconic eagle spreads its wings proudly while clutching arrows and olive branches beneath the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. The design symbolized strength, stability, and classic American identity during one of the most dramatic economic transitions of the 20th century. Millions of these quarters moved through everyday circulation during the mid-1960s, but very few survived in attractive, fine condition with original surfaces still intact. Now pay close attention, because this is where the hidden treasure story becomes extraordinary. Unlike later copper-nickel quarters, the 1964 Washington quarter was struck using a composition of 90% silver and 10% copper. That alone already makes the coin historically significant because it represents the end of circulating silver quarters in America. Each coin weighed approximately 6.25 grams. Noticeably heavier than later clad issues, measured around 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and carried a thickness close to 1.75 millimeters. The reeded edge surrounding the coin once helped protect against silver shaving and counterfeiting. Under proper lighting, genuine silver quarters from this era often display a completely different visual depth compared to modern coins. But what truly transformed certain survivors into collector legends was the appearance of naturally formed black layered surfaces developed over decades of storage and environmental exposure. Most people panic when they see dark black layering on old silver coins. They assume the coin is ruined. That misunderstanding destroys hidden fortunes constantly. In reality, natural black toning on silver can become one of the most desirable characteristics in the collector world when the surfaces remain original and untouched. Silver reacts slowly over time with sulfur and environmental elements, creating deep layers of dark toning that can spread dramatically across the surface. Under bright light, these black layers often reveal hidden shades of blue, charcoal, violet, and silver underneath, creating a haunting visual effect impossible to replicate artificially. Experienced collectors become fascinated by naturally toned silver because every pattern develops differently over decades. No two coins age exactly the same way. One estate buyer reportedly discovered a rare black-layered 1964 quarter while sorting through belongings from an elderly war veteran's attic. At first, the coin looked almost damaged because the black toning covered large portions of Washington's portrait and the eagle reverse. But something about the surfaces looked authentic rather than altered. The buyer wisely avoided cleaning the coin and brought it to a professional numismatist instead. Under magnification, experts confirmed the surfaces remained completely original with no evidence of harsh polishing or chemical treatment. The coin had simply aged naturally over generations while preserving strong underlying detail. That authenticity changed everything. What looked like dark damage to ordinary people became breathtaking originality to serious collectors. This is why survival rates matter more than mintage numbers alone. Millions of 1964 quarters were produced, but most vanished through circulation, melting, cleaning, scratches, or careless handling. During the silver boom years, enormous numbers of silver quarters were removed from circulation and melted for bullion value. Others were stored improperly and destroyed by moisture or corrosion. And many people accidentally ruined valuable examples trying to improve their appearance using jewelry cleaner, baking soda, toothpaste, or harsh cloth polishing. Every cleaned coin reduced the number of untouched survivors remaining in the marketplace. That shrinking supply created intense competition whenever premium original examples appeared publicly. Then came the auction that stunned even veteran collectors. The room felt almost electric before bidding even started. Under focused white lighting, the 1964 no-mint mark quarter appeared on giant display screens while bidders studied every inch of its mysterious black-layered surfaces. The toning gave the coin an almost ghost-like appearance, as though decades of history had settled permanently onto the silver itself. The auctioneer carefully described the coin's originality, fine condition preservation, and exceptional eye appeal. At first, bids climbed steadily. Then suddenly, the atmosphere changed completely. Wealthy collectors recognized they were competing for one of the most visually dramatic surviving silver Washington quarters known from the final silver year. Paddles rose rapidly. The numbers exploded into six figures. Online viewers flooded collector forums in disbelief. Every new bid tightened the tension inside the room. Then, finally, came the moment nobody expected. The hammer crashed down at $175,000 for a single quarter, a coin somebody once considered dirty and worthless. This changes the way people see old pocket change forever. The emotional obsession surrounding coins like this comes from one terrifying possibility. Hidden treasure still exists in ordinary places. Somewhere right now, another rare silver quarter may be sitting inside an old coffee can, buried inside a junk drawer, or mixed unnoticed among ordinary coins in circulation. Most people never stop to inspect dates carefully. Most people never understand the importance of silver composition, mint history, or original toning. And that lack of awareness allows fortunes to slip away constantly. Now here is one of the most important warnings collectors repeat endlessly. Never clean old silver coins. Cleaning destroys originality instantly. Even soft wiping can leave microscopic hairline scratches across the surface that permanently damage collector value. Natural toning proves age and authenticity. Once removed, it can never truly return. Professional buyers prefer untouched surfaces because originality tells the coin's real story. If you ever discover a darkly toned silver quarter, resist every temptation to polish it. Place it carefully inside a protective holder and seek expert evaluation before making any decisions. Collector demand for 1964 silver quarters continues rising because they represent the final circulating silver quarter generation in American history. Younger collectors chase them because of their historical importance and precious metal content. Older collectors compete aggressively for exceptional original survivors because they understand how difficult truly untouched examples have become. And visually dramatic black layered coins attract even more attention because they combine rarity, artistry, and history into a single object small enough to fit inside a pocket. One longtime dealer once described naturally toned silver coins as tiny pieces of buried history hiding in plain sight. That phrase perfectly explains why stories like this capture people emotionally. Treasure is no longer limited to pirate chests or lost gold bars. Sometimes treasure looks like an ordinary dark quarter sitting silently at the bottom of an old drawer while nobody realizes its true value. So before you spend another old Washington quarter without checking the date and surfaces carefully, remember the story of the 1964 no mint marked silver quarter with its mysterious black layered toning. A coin nearly dismissed as worthless eventually stunned collectors, with a market value reaching $175,000. Hidden fortunes do not always shine brightly. Sometimes they hide beneath darkness, waiting for the right person to recognize treasure where everyone else sees only ordinary change. Next up, an old vending machine repairman in Nevada once told a story that still haunts coin collectors to this day. While dismantling a broken soda machine abandoned inside a closed roadside diner, he found dozens of quarters trapped deep inside the rusted mechanism. Most were scratched, filthy, and heavily worn from years of circulation. But one coin instantly stood apart. It carried a faint black layer spreading gently across the silver surface like smoke trapped beneath glass. The date read 1962. There was no mint mark beneath it. And even after decades hidden inside darkness, the details on Washington's face still looked remarkably sharp. The repairman almost spent it on cigarettes during the drive home. Imagine that! A coin worth more than $200,000 nearly vanished forever in a roadside gas station transaction. This is why hidden coin treasures are so terrifyingly real. Fortunes move silently through ordinary circulation while people spend them every single day without noticing. And tonight's final coin is the most shocking discovery of them all. Stay with me carefully, because what collectors uncovered about this quarter changed the hobby forever. And whatever happens, do not spend this coin. The 1962 Washington quarter, without a mint mark, represents one of the final chapters of America's true silver coin era before the massive monetary transition that transformed U.S. coinage forever. During the early 1960s, Americans still carried real silver quarters in their pockets without thinking much about it. Coins moved through diners, gas stations, grocery stores, jukeboxes, casinos, bus stations, and movie theaters every hour of every day. Nobody imagined these ordinary pieces of pocket change would eventually become hidden treasures worth astonishing amounts of money. Philadelphia produced millions of quarters during 1962, and because Philadelphia coins from that period often carried no mint mark, most people today still overlook them completely. That missing mint mark became part of the mystery. Collectors eventually realized that surviving examples with original surfaces and unusual toning were becoming dramatically harder to locate with every passing decade. At first glance, the design appears familiar to nearly every American. On the obverse, George Washington's profile faces left beneath the word Liberty, while In God We Trust rests beside the date 1962. Beneath the year, no mint mark appears, confirming the coin originated from Philadelphia. To ordinary people, that absence means nothing, but experienced collectors immediately recognize it as a defining detail connected to one of the most historically important minting periods in modern U.S. history. On the reverse, the majestic eagle spreads its wings powerfully while clutching arrows and olive branches beneath the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and Quarter Dollar. This classic reverse design symbolized strength, patriotism, and national identity during a tense Cold War era when America itself was changing rapidly. Holding one of these quarters almost feels like holding a preserved fragment of everyday life from another world. Now pay extremely close attention, because this is where the hidden treasure story becomes unbelievable. Unlike modern clad quarters, the 1962 Washington quarter was struck using 90% silver and 10% copper. That silver composition alone already makes the coin historically significant, because these were real precious metal circulation coins Americans used casually every day. Each quarter weighed approximately 6.25 grams, measured 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and carried a thickness near 1.75 millimeters with a sharply reeded edge. Under bright lighting, genuine silver quarters produce a completely different visual texture compared to modern coins. The surfaces reflect light with a softer, richer glow impossible to duplicate artificially. But what transformed certain surviving 1962 no-mint mark quarters into collector legends was the appearance of naturally formed lightly black layered toning that developed slowly over generations. Most people misunderstand toned silver coins completely. They see dark surfaces and assume damage. That mistake has probably destroyed millions of dollars in hidden coin value over the years. Natural black layering forms gradually when silver reacts with environmental elements such as sulfur, humidity, paper storage materials, and air exposure over long periods of time. On rare, untouched coins, this process creates delicate layers of charcoal, gray, violet, and midnight black toning that drift across the surface almost like shadows. Under proper lighting, the effect becomes hypnotic. Collectors often describe naturally toned silver as looking alive because the color shifts subtly depending on how the light moves. And here is the critical detail most people never learn. Original untouched toning can dramatically increase collector demand because it proves authenticity and long-term preservation. One retired waitress reportedly discovered a 1962 black layered quarter while cleaning out her late father's fishing tackle box. The coin sat hidden beneath old hooks and faded receipts for decades. At first, she almost threw it away because the dark toning made it appear old and dirty. But when sunlight passed across the surface near a kitchen window, the black layer revealed soft silver highlights underneath that immediately caught her attention. She brought the coin to a local coin show where dealers crowded around the table almost instantly. Experts later confirmed the surfaces were fully original with no signs of cleaning or chemical alteration. The coin had survived naturally for generations. That authenticity changed everything. This is where survival rates become far more important than original production numbers. Millions of 1962 quarters once existed, but the overwhelming majority disappeared through circulation, silver melting, scratches, cleaning damage, and neglect. During the silver booms of later decades, countless Washington quarters were melted simply for bullion value. Others were polished aggressively by owners who believed shiny coins looked more valuable. Every cleaned coin reduced the number of untouched survivors remaining for future collectors. That shrinking supply created extraordinary competition whenever premium naturally toned examples entered the marketplace. Then came the auction that sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. The atmosphere inside the room felt heavy long before bidding began. Bright white lights illuminated the 1962 quarter, while giant screens magnified every inch of its lightly black layered surfaces. The coin looked almost unreal beneath the spotlight, like a preserved artifact rescued from another era. The auctioneer slowly described the coin's originality, fine condition preservation, silver composition, and extraordinary eye appeal. Bidders leaned forward silently. At first, the numbers climbed cautiously. Then suddenly, the room exploded with energy. Wealthy collectors realized they were competing for one of the finest and most visually captivating surviving examples known from the early silver Washington quarter era. Titles rose rapidly. Online spectators flooded collector forums in disbelief as the price crossed six figures. The tension inside the room became almost unbearable. Every bid felt heavier than the last. Then, finally, after a fierce battle between determined buyers, the hammer crashed down at $208,500. For one quarter, one small coin somebody nearly spent without a second thought. This changes everything. The emotional power behind hidden coin treasures comes from one terrifying possibility. Valuable history still exists in ordinary places while people remain completely unaware. Somewhere tonight, another rare 1962 Washington quarter may still be hiding in a junk drawer, buried inside a coin jar, trapped inside an old vending machine, or resting silently at the bottom of someone's pocket. Most people never inspect old silver coins carefully. Most people never notice the missing mint mark, the natural toning, or the surviving details that collectors obsess over. And because of that ignorance, fortunes continue disappearing into circulation every day. Now here is the warning every serious collector repeats constantly. Never clean old silver coins. Not with cloth. Not with chemicals. Not with toothpaste. Not with baking soda. Cleaning permanently destroys original surfaces and leaves microscopic damage that can collapse collector value instantly. Natural toning tells the coin's real story. Once erased, it can never truly return. If you ever discover an unusual silver Washington quarter, protect it carefully inside a holder and seek professional grading before rushing to sell it. Certified coins attract stronger buyer confidence because authenticity and condition become officially verified. Collector demand for early silver Washington quarters has exploded in recent years because people finally understand how few untouched survivors remain. Younger collectors chase them because of their connection to real silver history. Veteran numismatists compete aggressively for visually dramatic examples because naturally toned silver has become one of the most admired categories in the hobby. And the 1962 no-mint mark quarter with lightly black layered surfaces represents the perfect combination of rarity, historical significance, beauty, and survival against impossible odds. The frightening truth is that most hidden fortunes never look obvious. They do not glow like treasure chests in movies. Sometimes they look dark, old, and ordinary while passing silently from hand to hand across America. That is exactly why these stories grip millions of viewers emotionally. Treasure still exists. Hidden wealth still moves through circulation. And somewhere, right now, someone may unknowingly carry a quarter worth more than an entire house. So before you spend another old coin without checking carefully, remember the story of the 1962 Washington quarter without a mint mark and its mysterious lightly black layered silver surfaces. A coin nearly forgotten inside a broken vending machine eventually shocked collectors with a market value reaching $208,500. And that means one terrifying possibility still remains true tonight. The next hidden fortune could already be sitting in your pocket. If this video saved you from accidentally spending a fortune, subscribe right now because we reveal coin secrets most people never hear about. And before you leave, go check your coin jars, old wallets, dresser drawers, and pocket change carefully. Comment below if you have ever found an unusual quarter because your discovery could be worth far more than you imagine. Hidden treasures are still out there, but only the people paying attention will recognize them before they disappear forever.